fast forward to the late 80s. And I remember this because there was a top diamond merchant whose son or daughter got married at Wankhede Stadium. And this was the first time when newspapers reported about how a prominent Bollywood set designer had designed the sets. There were protesters outside the stadium, hundreds and hundreds of protesters talking about how a wasteful expenditure is happening.
The Ambani wedding. But a lot of people feel that this is also a show of power. It's also showing the kind of what that you have across industries when you keep your wedding so big, and also being closely tracked by the media, paparazzi, everything. Is it true it's a show of power too?
I would just put it this way, that
has been going on
and
for
I
a long
must
time.
tell you, it's put a lot of pressure on the super wealthy, yeah, because so it was really the time when we started. The most difficult thing was to get one wedding photo. Perhaps the only star who managed to keep their wedding venue a secret till the time they came out was Vidya Balan and Sidharth Roy Kapoor.
Sonakshi and Zaheer Iqbal's wedding.
They chose an independent venue. It was not a typical 5-star venue.
I have been told that Bollywood celebrities, most of them do barter deals with the wedding fraternity. The mileage that they get, is that true? Jamnagar genuinely now becoming the next wedding capital.
Well, it was a very unique thing because they hosted it in their own complex. I don't think the hotels there will be open for outsiders.
So there's no dominant designer.
Yeah, I think 2024 we hear less of Sabyasachi, not as much as we heard about till 2023.
Spot 2, spot 3, who would that be?
Abu Sandeep and Manish Malhotra.
Do you think Shahrukh, Aamir, Salman, 3 of the biggest Khans, coming together after years performing on stage? I don't think they performed on stage together in years.
Yeah.
Were they paid for it, or they came as guests and voluntarily said, because we like the family, because we're close to the family, we'll perform on stage? Right now when Justin Bieber and all came, I saw a lot of reels of people, grooving with him, singing with him and all that. Do you think the family would have had a problem with those footages being given out by the guests?
But I'm sure the guests were requested at least not to put out too many videos.
What percentage of one's income does one spend on their weddings?
In the case of a middle-class family, it would not be surprising if 1 year's income is spent overall on the wedding. And if you look at the high net worth individuals, the total net worth of the family being around 100 crores, it would be anywhere from 1 to 5%. Hi, this is Parthip Thyagarajan, co-founder and CEO of Weddingsutra.com. I've just had a wonderful chat with Sidharth Kannan, where I've talked all about the wedding industry, Bollywood weddings, celebrity weddings, some inside scoops and more. Subscribe to Sidharth Kannan's YouTube channel now.
Indian weddings, corporate weddings, political weddings, Bollywood weddings. रोज मेरे फीड में यही आता रहता है कि यार संगीत में ये हुआ, behind the scene ये हुआ, functions non-stop continue कर रहे हैं. But one person who's going to give us the lowdown, CEO of Weddingsutra.com, which is India's first and biggest wedding platform. Parthip Thyagarajan, कैसे हैं आप? How are you?
Well, thank you, Sid. Great to meet you again.
मैं एक चीज बताना चाहता हूं लोगों से, बिफोर वी गेट डाउन टू वेडिंग्स के बिहाइंड द सीन्स क्या हो रहा है, सारे आपके सवालों के जवाब जो आप जानना चाहते हैं ये सब बताएंगे. मिड 90s या लेट 90s में मेरा पहला लाइफ का जो आर्टिकल आया था बॉम्बे टाइम्स में विद माय ब्रदर ऋषिके एंड मी, माय फर्स्ट आर्टिकल एवर वाज डन बाय पार्थिप. सो आई वांट टू टेल यू, मैं जनरली बहुत इमोशनल हो जाता हूं. थैंक यू फॉर गिविंग मी विंग्स टू फ्लाई, क्योंकि एक लखनऊ के लड़के को 16 या 17 साल की उम्र में कोई आर्टिकल लिखता है एंड टॉक्स अबाउट हिज अचीवमेंट्स, which I don't know were great or not, but you did it.
Thank
so
you.
thank you from the bottom of my heart, yeah. Thank you.
Pleasure.
तो अब चलते हैं इंडियन वेडिंग्स, जैसे अब अंबानी वेडिंग्स जो नॉन स्टॉप are going on continuously for so many months. There's so many memes on it, all right? What is it about Indian weddings that the world is talking about?
You know, Sidharth, as I often say, it is not the wedding industry, it's the happiness industry. And we know how much we missed it during COVID. You know, while there would be no official data or study which talks about the wedding industry, the way you talk about Bollywood, automobiles, pharmaceutical, but in any home, in a city where people love spending and leading a good life, the conversations every weekend or drawing room conversations will be about weddings. So, as I say, it's the least documented but most talked about industry. The very fact that it's most talked about will tell you about the happiness, the fashion, the entertainment and the food elements. So that explains it.
But cheez batao, like how we all get interested in watching pan-India films, South films, Bollywood films. People are interested in watching wedding behind the scenes, wedding snippets. And aajkal to that's become conversations in every household. Look at the Ambani wedding, look at the Sonakshi wedding, Tapsi wedding, vagera vagera. So I want you to take me down memory lane, है ना? Political weddings ho, businessman weddings ho, Bollywood weddings ho. Let's do a flashback and take me through how this has grown and why it's reached where it has.
Okay, so let's start from the 70s.
Ji.
When Bollywood weddings were quite often secret weddings. And the only way, no newspaper would cover a wedding. Just can you imagine? They would not write about a marriage or a wedding in the front page. It was all about, all that you read on the front page was politics, maybe a little bit of business and sports. And we had to wait, say, once a month for the latest issue of Stardust or Star and Style or Filmfare or others to even release some wedding photos. Fast forward to the late 80s, and I remember this because there was a top diamond merchant whose son or daughter got married at Wankhede Stadium, and this was the first time when newspapers reported about how a prominent Bollywood set designer had designed the sets. And imagine today if they were out in the reels, people would go gaga. No, that didn't happen. There were protesters outside the stadium, hundreds and hundreds of protesters talking about how a wasteful expenditure is happening. And this was not too far back. It was the late 80s or early 90s. The diamond merchant in question took out a press release by talking about how his personal space and privacy should have been respected because it was a personal function. And he spoke about how nobody talked about how, you know, the kind of employment which is generated or the kind of work he does in supporting NGOs. Nothing of that sort. It was all negative publicity. Another 10 years later, people were all having fairly low-key weddings in their hometown, and maybe till as late as 2000, even a top industrialist, they would rarely be the personalization. When I say personalization, not being there, they would just be happy with what the club or the hotel was offering them. Nothing like getting an outside caterer or a chaatwala or anything beyond what was being offered. A few years later, around 2010, the families started looking at destination weddings. Why did this happen? Because they didn't want the word to go out in the city on how much they're spending. Again, it was about their private space. And in 2010, when these international destinations wedding started happening, there was a wow factor. It started off by Thailand in the Middle East, and soon Dubai, Oman, Qatar, they all opened their destination for weddings. Again, let's go forward 10 years later to 2020. We all know how much we miss the wedding. And I've seen such a change, Sid, that post those 2 years, when anybody is talking about weddings, they are talking about employment generation, experiences, personalization. And as I keep saying, the big fat wedding and the slim and smart wedding will both coexist. Some weddings in some communities are only becoming bigger, and whereas there are a lot of millennials and Gen X who relate with the slim and smart wedding.
I've always noticed, and I was very curious, पहले जो ज़माना था, people used to be very hush-hush about their marriages, especially in the Bollywood world, right? You knew they were going to have affairs, or they are having affairs. In fact, there used to be rumors that this actress is married to so-and-so actor, and that actor already has another wife, and all these things used to happen. And everything was under the carpet. They used to have these sudden, small temple weddings, or कहते थे भगवान के सामने हमने शादी किया and all that. And now you find Bollywood especially being so bindas about their weddings. They're happy to show every moment of their weddings, though some of them is curated, of course. This transformation that happened within actors in the fraternity, why and how did it happen?
There's a difference between a real couple and a Bollywood couple. The real couple wants to be the Bollywood star for that day, whereas the Bollywood star is used to cameras facing him or her every day. So they are very happy, in fact, to have a simple wedding. Whereas the person who is watching all these Bollywood stars, he wants to be the star for the day. That's the big difference between celebrity weddings and real weddings. But having said that, we all know how maybe in the 90s, there were many actresses, 80s, 90s, who just had a very simple and a hush-hush wedding. And also, there was a general perception that, you know, that if you're married, once you get married, you get fewer roles. I'm not a Bollywood, expert here. You would know better. But we all know how so many actresses who are married are just continue to do very well, whether it's as influencers or, brand endorsers, and also, of course, the film's work that they get. So when we look at Bollywood, some of them popularized Italy as a destination, like Virushka, Deepika. That's one of the reasons why Italy did very well. But 5 years later, we are finding many of them are happy with the at-home wedding or the Rajasthan or Goa wedding. So we know Atya decided to have an at-home wedding at her parents' bungalow in Khandala. And I can understand why. Someone like them, they want to keep it very low profile. They don't want, something very big. Or, of course, Alia, because, of course, probably it was during COVID time. And many others decided to get married in Rajasthan. They didn't choose Italy or France or Spain. And Rakul Preet, one of the most recent weddings, wed in Goa. So these Bollywood weddings, which were much in the news earlier, will not be the only weddings which will be in the news. Earlier you heard about politicians' kids' weddings, which were the mega weddings. You heard about Bollywood weddings, but there's another B-town you hear about now today much more, and you will continue to hear about further, is the billionaire club, billionaire and business family weddings. So you have a lot of business family weddings which were maintaining, these business families were keeping a low profile, but today at least half of them, I won't say all of them, are very happy if the bride or the groom or the planner or the photographer shares reels on social media.
Tell me now, there's a discussion on social media, right? They say, is a show of wealth also for billionaire weddings? For example, the Ambani wedding, which has been going on for a long time. I'm not judging anyone, to each his own.
Sure.
Okay? If you have it, you do whatever you want with it. You want a small wedding, it's up to you. But a lot of people feel that this is also a show of power. It's also showing the kind of what that you have across industries when you keep your wedding so big, and also being closely tracked by the media, paparazzi, everything. Is it true it's a show of power too?
I would just put it this way, that the Ambanis in many ways have not only generated huge opportunities, and they've done the best service, I think, to the wedding industry.
Sure.
But they have also put together celebrations which are going back to the roots, and also done something very nice in their place of their, the place of the where the headquarters are is Jamnagar. So really, it's about what they have done for the wedding industry. And I think the family just enjoys this, if you know what I mean, right? I think Neeta Ben probably enjoys curating all this. The son is very happy to be meeting so many people. And as you put it, to each his own.
Yeah, but is the format of pre-weddings, when I say pre-wedding, is
Sure.
the build-up to it, is that going to be in now?
Absolutely.
Because this particular wedding has been going on
And
for a
I
long
must
time.
tell you, it's put a lot of pressure on the super wealthy, yeah, because we've seen some beautiful decor by some of the top decor designers all over. So there's a lot of pressure on the wedding decorators and designers. So the bride shows them some reel and says, you know what, this is from this wedding or this is from this pre-wedding function. And they just say, you know what, hey, I hope you're aware that this costs so much. So earlier, the general perception was that, if you do a decor, it's just going to last for a couple of hours. But today, the way the bride sees it, it's going to be on her social media feed, not just for a few days, but even a few months. And with this, we're going to see more and more families having grander pre-wedding. And I'm not referring to the middle-class families or the upper middle-class families. I'm really talking about the super wealthy. And there are 800 such weddings which happen in a year of the super wealthy.
Okay, so there's one school which is no phone policy. I've known of weddings where they say the celebrities are getting married, keep your phone outside, walk in inside, messages being given on invite saying no phones allowed, no
Sure.
pictures. And then there's this separate side where it's out there. Like again, I bring up the Ambani wedding. Everyone and anyone was having their reels being shot, pictures being shot, everything. Why is there such a big contrast? Some celebrity weddings, no phone policy, and one like the Ambanis where they say, jo shoot karna hai karo.
Even with the Ambani weddings, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the guests have been told not to take photos and videos. A lot of this is, maybe by a few guests, family members, which is out. And of course, what you see is really the action outside the venue. For the first time, netizens and social media followers are really able to take a peek into the world of the rich and famous. Because even if you're not seeing what ceremonies are happening inside, you are watching how at these billionaire club weddings, how the cars the guests come in, what he is wearing, what she is wearing, the whole mechanics of how the interactions happen, how somebody is greeted in some way, what are the power equations there. So it's a whole new, it's what you call an eye-opener for social media followers who up till now could only watch Bollywood couples pose for waiting photographers after the wedding. And of course, on Weddingsutra, we would share photos of the decor and, photos which would typically be approved by the family, but we would not obviously be sharing some candid moments as close as possible to beyond the scene. And that is what really sells, because as you would, it's probably there on your feed. It'll continue to be there on your feed for the next couple of days, since the main wedding celebrations are between 12th to 14th. But it is these candid moments, what happens outside, which those who are very active on social media really like to see.
Like in the Ambani weddings, I'm glad you brought this up. So you're saying they were also told, the guests were also told, ki,
Sure.
dekho,
Absolutely.
phones not allowed.
Like in the cruise, I'm sure. Even I'm not sure about Jamnagar and Antalya and Geo, but for cruise, there was a no phone policy. And if you notice, the pictures which were shared by the celebs were when they stepped outside the cruise and they were just going and exploring the city.
Celebrity cruise, they were clearly told nothing inside.
Absolutely.
But right now when Justin Bieber and all came, I saw a lot of reels of people, grooving with him, singing with him and all that. Do you think the family would have had a problem with those footages being given out by the guests?
After some time, when you have so many guests coming in for so many days, it's very difficult to control. But I'm sure the guests were requested, at least in Jamnagar, not to put out too many videos.
When I see Weddingsutra, and I'm so proud of you because you had the foresight of the wedding industry.
And only I know how much trouble I had getting people to give their wedding photos when I started. Yeah. It was like, listen, you're my best friend, but we want to keep it private. Please don't ask me for wedding photos. So it was really the time when we started. The most difficult thing was to get one wedding photo. And in fact, the first celebrity wedding which we featured was of film director Fahad Samar and his wife Simone, who acted as Hina. And I remember because he was one person who very happily shared his wedding photos. But otherwise, getting wedding photos for the internet was quite a task.
Why? Because they were conscious of the fact that puri duniya dekhegi types?
Absolutely. And internet was not seen as a mainline media. It was not like a print publication. Internet was something which way back then, there was nothing like social media, there was nothing like even Google, right? But internet was something which people did not understand, and they just did not see it as a safe place to share their private moments.
I remember those days people used to talk like, हाँ ये बंदा दिखता है पर वो internet platforms में दिखता है, print में नहीं दिखता है. They used to look down on it.
Absolutely.
When did this thing happen? When people said, I want the internet to see how grand my wedding was, and who decided to make that so public? Was it the political families? Was it the billionaire club? Or was it Bollywood per se?
Everything. And talking about, since we're talking about the Ambani family, we know how Jio also helped with internet penetration in India. So it all comes back full circle. You know, some years later, you go to your car park and your driver is watching some wedding video, you know, on YouTube. So, you know, when internet was not something which had an exclusivity also, because I remember so many ladies I would meet, brides-to-be, who would tell me lunch hour would be dedicated to scrolling Weddingsutra. Because obviously we didn't have the smartphones. And as you would remember, our house MTNL line would also double up for our internet usage. And I remember lunch hour was the time when so many brides would tell me that they would take a break from their work to log on to Weddingsutra. So it was very different. Internet was also for those who had the access. It was not for one and all. And Jio was the game changer there. So when did this happen? I'll tell you how it happened for Weddingsutra. We were the first platform which started giving credits to wedding photographers. And when we started giving credits to wedding photographers, they also got visibility. So from the time when it was, say, 2000 to 2005, if we had approached a wedding photographer, and it would not be unusual for him to say, pay me money so that I can give you photos of my clients, to 2010 onwards, when simply tagging them on Facebook and crediting them in the articles was the game changer. And soon we saw many, many photographers who were only dabbling in wedding photography moved from fashion photography to wedding photography. Interestingly, since you're from Bangalore, I must tell you, Bangalore has a lot of IT companies where they have photography clubs. So there's a very interesting story there. I've met some engineers who said they were making decent money in their IT jobs, but they were all part of the photography club. And one of their colleagues was getting married, and he invited them, along with the studio photographer, to do the candid shots. So from doing an assignment once in 6 months, for a co-worker, word of mouth happened. Soon it was once in 2 months, once a month. And they were just happy that they were away from their IT campuses into a very different environment with music, decor, and many more aesthetic elements. By that I mean the wedding. And they could get some good pocket money. And 2014 onwards, many started quitting their corporate or tech jobs to venture full-time into wedding photography. And I would say all this has also happened not only because of social media, because today the wedpreneurs, as I call them, are very cool folks whether they are shooting weddings, or they are shooting Sid while he's on stage. The social media managers, makeup artists, decor designers, they are influencers, planners, of course. They're not just event managers, but they are planners today. Earlier, say till 2000, even a profession of called a wedding planner was unknown in India. All this and more has contributed to the rise of the wedding industry.
Wow. Getting back to my first question, which are the weddings which had the no phone policy? I mean, whatever comes to your mind, these big fat Indian weddings, no phone policies, which are the ones that had it of late?
So I do know a lot of planners and families have told me that what happens is it's very difficult to tell a guest what to do and what not to do. So sometimes it was communicated through a note, and very often it was not communicated at all. Because even if the family is very, very private, and there's a guest who gets up to take photos, it can be considered rude. Because Indian weddings are so different. You do not write rules and regulations. There are only some communities which follow the RSVP policy, right? Unlike abroad, where you send in your details, 2 members, 1 vegetarian, one non-vegetarian. In India, if you are inviting somebody for a wedding, and let's go back to how it is in towns, I'm not talking of Bombay, the whole family was invited. And nobody was even turned away. We've seen that in 3 Idiots, right? It was only who was the principal who caught them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just the 3 Idiots, but there were so many students who were hungry at midnight and found their way into the wedding. And what if the family found out they were not guests? They're not going to throw them out, because they're saying, hey, everyone's invited. So it was a very, very common practice in India until the 500 packs wedding became a 250 or 300 packs, where the gate crasher would be recognized.
When these photos get leaked from the guest phone, I remember Vicky and Katrina had a no phone policy.
Even Deepika and Ranbir, I think there were a lot of paparazzi who tried to go there and.
So what happens then if they get leaked by the guest or the paps? Then does the PR machinery of the celebrities get in touch with them and tell them to pull it down, or tell them, boss, legal action hoga?
I don't think the word legal action is put out. And there was even a rumor that during Katrina's wedding, the guests were asked to sign a contract. I think those are all just rumors.
They're all bullshit.
All rumors, because what happens is that if the couple is or there were even rumors that the rights of the wedding were being sold to some, all rumors. See, actually a lot of theories float around.
Netflix ko bech diya, Amazon ko bech diya,
Hello
ko bech diya.
All guests are made to sign a legal contract. Nothing of that sort happens. If the couple says, you know what? So today what Bollywood is, the one thing which a lot of Bollywood stars want is they want to be the first ones to release the pictures on their own handle. And sometimes they want to do it as a collaboration post between the bride and the groom, or in some cases, perhaps with the wedding planner or the photographer, but that is definitely not the first post. So there is a certain protocol they have to follow. Let's start with something like the invites. Guests are putting it up on the story, but there's an unsaid rule that you do not mention the name of the venue.
So they blur it.
They blur it. However, in some cases, if by error a guest or a media platform puts the name of it's happened to us once with a Bollywood star. But, we were just talking about the wedding, and by error, we did not blur it. So the request which came from the PR machineries, can you please take it down? The invite is going viral, and we're very happy that people are liking the invite, but can you just repost it, blurring the venue? However, there was before we could take it down, some other folks, because a lot of pages follow our page, and then there was a little worry that what if some folks, people just land up at the venue, but it didn't happen because it was Bombay, And in Bombay, we know that it's not that people just don't come and gherav a venue. And even in the case of Parineeti, the reception card was leaked, and it was, I think, it was a 5-star hotel. But in India, we don't have that kind of security risk, right? We don't have hundreds of people just coming outside a wedding venue. But what perhaps is one thing is that it's very interesting you say this, that perhaps the only star who managed to keep their wedding venue a secret till the time they came out was Vidya Balan and Sidharth Roy Kapoor, because there was a rumor that she's having a temple wedding in Chembur, and I think the photographers actually reached that venue. But they had, Sidharth and Vidya had a very nice and simple wedding at a beautiful bungalow in Bandra. And by the time the celebration started, the photographers reached there. So it's impossible to keep a Bollywood wedding a secret, because even if you're inviting 50 guests, chances are at least one guest has told one photographer where the wedding is taking place. And if it's happening in a Bombay or a Delhi, it is an unwritten code that you have to step out to pose for waiting photographers. And you can avoid that only if you're having a wedding at a very, very isolated resort, like in the case of Katrina or Deepika and Ranbir or Virishka.
मैंने 30 years complete किए इंडियन एंटरटेनमेंट बिजनेस में, और एक चीज ने मुझे हमेशा इंस्पायर की है, आगे बढ़ाया है, वो है मेरे अंदर के अंगार ने. My अंगार merchandise is out. जी हाँ, ये है मेरा अंगार टी-शर्ट, अंगार बैग्स, अंगार मग्स, और साथ में जो भी लाइनें मैं बोलता हूं दिल से मेरे पॉडकास्ट में, मेरे चैट शो में, वो सारी लाइनें होंगी मेरी टी-शर्ट्स, हुडीज, जंपर्स में एट अ वेरी वेरी अफोर्डेबल प्राइस. माय अंगार मर्चेंडाइज इज ऑल योर्स. अंगार खरीदिए और अंगार मचाइए. This is going to be very candid. I'm very curious because I'm representing the voice of the common man, common woman. I have been told that Bollywood celebrities, most of them do barter deals with the wedding fraternity or with the hotels, because they believe that the hotels को बहुत सारा publicity मिलेगा. So either they get the rooms in hardcore discounts, alcohol, the bar, everything is waived off, because the person who's behind the bar, the brands, they say, अच्छा यार हमको publicity मिलेगा. Even the designers end up giving clothes free of cost because they get that tagging on Instagram and various platforms. So actually celebrity wedding pay the least to all the vendors who are there because of the mileage that they get. Is that true?
Yes and no, because if in the case of somebody like a Taapsee Pannu, for who did not release her pictures, I'm sure she did not do these barters with the designers or the hotels. Hotels do offer a good deal to Bollywood stars, especially the A-list stars. And I must say one thing, that Bollywood weddings are quite a game changer for venues as well as vendors. As far as, but one thing is there, Bollywood couples don't want to risk it with an unknown photographer or an emerging talent, because they do want folks who've already experienced with doing other Bollywood or similar profile things. And nor do they want to be in that situation where this person uses it all for, visibility, because privacy is all important, right? Especially before the wedding. So what they end up getting is good deals. If they're working with a top photographer, that top photographer will probably give them a 15% discount. But if they decide to work with somebody who's not a top photographer and who's looking for that big break, chances are that they get a very good deal. But it's very, very rare for a barter to happen with a 5-star hotel. What could possibly happen is that after the wedding, the hotel is paying them for some collaboration posts. So it's about spending some money, getting some money.
Oh, wow. So you're saying, let me understand in 15 seconds. They pay at a discounted rate to the hotels and various vendors.
Sure.
Later on, you see, acha, so-and-so hotel may I had the wedding. Maybe as a return, they end up giving an X amount to promote that.
Absolutely.
Right?
In some cases, yes.
In some cases, yes. What about the performers who come and sing at these celebrity weddings? Do they actually talk fees? Now, I know, for example, in a feature film, I know when there's a big production house, I know of actors who don't even talk monies when they come and act in a film. I know about singers, and I'm sure you know too, where singers, supposing a music director calls and says, "Acha, ye so-and-so production house ka hai," singers don't even charge a rupee for playback singing. And believe me, not even a rupee, because they feel they'll be part of that song and hopefully they'll make money out of shows. So these performers, do they charge in these big weddings?
Some of them don't. They're only their travel, accommodation, and tech rider is taken care of, provided, of course, they are allowed to talk about it on their social media. Otherwise, they are not just going to do it for no visibility. And sometimes there is a kind of a deliverable that whenever you're doing a post on your feed, please, wherever you're mentioning, talking about the venue, please give us the suitable credits. But I will not say that the top DJs or the top performers would do this as a complete barter.
But they do give a very discounted rate.
Yes.
Yeah, but don't you think in life, because these Bollywood stars have so much money, the billionaires have so much money, people have thought it's ulta. कि यार ये लोग बोला अच्छा तो मेरा दोस्त है ये ले double the पैसा.
That is what my niece told me when she had moved from the US to work, and she worked with a wedding planner, and she was like, "Uncle, I was really surprised that the budgets of Bollywood weddings are just a fraction of what, you know." But let's face it this way: if you are getting married, you're a top Bollywood actor or an actress. By the time news is out on your engagement, you're going to get 10 requests from photographers. You're going to get some references from your friends. You're going to have, if, for example, if the actor is from Lucknow, he's going to have two top photographers from Lucknow saying, "Listen, Lucknow boys, support Lucknow boys, I'll be there for you." So when you have a lot of choices, you can just say, "Hey, you know what? You want to come on board? You can be the second or the third photographer." Maybe they decide to pay the main photographer who does certain portraits, and they tell two other photographers that, "Hey, you know what? You can do, function A or function B," and this can be a pure collaboration, whether you're the makeup artist or the photographer. And yes, I agree, Bollywood stars have a lot of buddies, especially the ones who are doing very well. But when it comes to the wedding, they all prefer, I must say this, Sid, that exactly what I said earlier. It is not as important a day in their life. Marriage is a very important thing for everybody. Everybody treats marriage with a certain sanctity. But hey, you know what? The day she's getting married, yes, but she's played the role of a bride in an ad film, in a feature film or a television. So the excitement which is there in a real bride of, posing for photographers or twirling in that lehenga, she's already had all that. And she says, "Hey, you know what? If I am able to save 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs, if she's from an ordinary background, no matter what she's earning today, even if she's earning, 15 crores per annum, I'm just saying hypothetically, a saving of 50 lakhs to 1 crore is quite a bit. Would you agree?"
Of course, of course.
50 lakhs is 50 lakhs. And if you can save on that, and you know how difficult it is to get good vendors, especially during the winter season and, the week around February 14th. This is the time everybody's getting married. But again, I say that for a lot of these people in the wedding business, to have one A-list Bollywood portfolio, you watch any photographer or makeup artist showing her work to a client. Client is flipping through the thing or going to "Hey, you've done this person's wedding. You share 20 photos and that one Bollywood bride's photo stands out. So that's why they all look forward to collaborating with B-Town for weddings.
So which means you're saying all the vendors, be it the performers, be it the makeup artist, be the mehendi artist, everyone who's done these so-called popular weddings which are out there in the public domain, does it give them a boost in their rates when they step out of that wedding?
Absolutely, you got it. If she's a mehendi wali, if she's already done 20 Bollywood brides, okay, she doesn't need to give a super discount to the 21st Bollywood bride, yeah? But she may still do it because she does not want another mehendi artist to be a solid competitor. And when she goes to other families, it's superb branding. So I must say, I did meet somebody who was Aamir Khan's photographer when Aamir Khan got married in maybe the late 80s. He said, you know what, my work was published, but nobody gave me credits. So there was nothing like branding. I didn't get any branding out of it. I'm sure it would have been the case with many others who got married 10 years later, whether it was Madhuri Dixit or Twinkle and Akshay. But today, they're all over family groups, school groups, not just the social media.
Talking about that, Aamir Khan ki beati, Ira.
She chose a wedding with a difference, yeah.
Hai na?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me your perspective on that wedding.
Very interesting, because a lot of people said, hey, you know what? This groom, I mean, did he overdo it by just, landing up at the venue in a ganji and shorts? I think what was wrong in what he did, he was just promoting healthy living. He and his best friends jogged to the venue. What is wrong with that? You are, if anything, you are everybody, and we're not judging somebody who comes in the fanciest car, and we should not. Just as how I don't judge that, I'm also not judging somebody who is just being himself. And I think, from what I've understood, Aamir Khan and Reena gave their daughter all the space, saying, you do what you want. You're going to have like a small pre-wedding ceremony at the Taj Lands, do it your way. You want to have 2 days of party in Udaipur, and they chose somebody who was not a very well-established planner. They chose only to work with friends. This is very interesting. So there are some Bollywood stars who work with the top names in the wedding design, decor, and planning business. And some, like Ira Khan, only chose to work with her friends, whether it was the makeup artist who was Colleen Khan. I don't know, I don't remember who the photographer is, but the planner was somebody known to her or her fiancé. So they chose to do it that way. It was 2 days of partying in Udaipur. And I think she was very herself. She was not probably dressed like the way the fashion-forward brides would be, from what I recall. And then probably they had a Mumbai-style reception at the Geo World Convention Center, where the who's who from the industry was there, and a top wedding management company was hired to put together the evening.
So when Ira's husband ran to the venue, did it give a heart attack to all the wedding planners? Because it might encourage an era of simplistic wear, basic wear. It could start that too,
Everything creates, every time a Bollywood person does something different, whether it's an at-home wedding or doing something like this, those in the business say, hey, you know what? Of course, they joke. Hey, we'll be out of business if this continues. It happened like post-COVID, right? When the at-home weddings were happening, they said, hey, we'll all be out of business, because how much catering and decor can you do for an at-home wedding? But exceptions will always be there. And this is something which I say, Sidharth, as long as parents in India continue to pay for the wedding, it's good news for the wedding industry. Because the moment the bride and the groom have to start paying for it, the budgets will just be a fraction of what it is today.
So you're saying the bride and the bridegroom deep down may want to spend less.
Absolutely.
And it's the parents who say, chalo yaar, ek hi beta hai, ek hi beti hai.
Absolutely. And things are also changing. Look at the Ambani wedding. It's not the girl's side who's spending, it's the boy's side who's spending. And now that's good, I feel. You know why? If it was the girl's side, if they were spending all this for their daughter, somewhere down the line, there would be that thing. there was a thin line between spending and dowry. Earlier, it was the girl side who was spending. The big change also happened is especially where at the the ultra net worth and the high ultra net worth segment, it started getting split. And therefore, the wedding industry, which at one point was synonymous with dowry, is not like, I'm sure dowry exists in many communities in India, which me and you may not be aware of. But there's less of an association with dowry. And I must tell you, Sidharth, this is something which I'm saying from the heart. That is one reason why the wedding industry did not even have the respectability which it has today. We have seen, many of us have seen the movie Monsoon Wedding by Meera Nair, where the decorator, he's a very sweet guy, but he's just abusing everybody. He's just there, flogging all the workers. That was the perception of somebody who's working in the industry, which is why when I used to approach event managers saying, do you do weddings? He says, I'll never do a wedding. Photographer, no, I'm not going to do a wedding. All that has changed today. And I must tell you about another incident where just before the Weddingsutra Influencer Awards, I approached a very well-known advertising professional who was the CEO of a company. And I think he had taken a break to do some consulting, saying, would you like to be on the jury of the Weddingsutra Influencer Awards, which honors the best in the wedding business? And he flatly refused, for it being something, he says, it is against my ethics. And I said, what? He says, I do not approve at all with the kind of wasteful expenditure and spending which happens in this industry. I said, okay, I respect your views and it's all right. But I must tell you, I heard from one of his friends that a few years later, he was pitching for a top bridal jewelry account. So there are a lot of contradictions here, but one thing is for sure. The Indian wedding industry is unique to India. It is about happiness, spending, and emotions.
If you look at how the wedding industry has evolved, and it's evolved and how, which are those unique celebrity weddings from political arena, billionaire club, Bollywood, which stayed in your mind, in your heart?
Sure.
Which are those?
I would say Subrata Roy's son's wedding. It was very nice. Just what if Jamnagar happened, in 2024. This happened sometime between 2000 and 2004. Why it was unique was because he invited the families of many of his employees to partake in the celebrations. And those who worked behind the scenes in the pre-WhatsApp and pre-social media talk about how Subrata Roy was a master event manager, and what a visionary he was to put together all that over 20 years before. And I'm talking about some weddings which I just enjoyed writing about. About 10 years later, I remember we wrote about Hema Malini, when so nicely she put together her daughter's wedding. And then that someone told me, you know what, there's a top Bollywood star, referring to someone, he just called 100 people and had an at-home wedding. Look at this lady. She did everything on her own, with the whole, and how well she put together celebrations across venues. There was, I think, the Sangeet and a reception for one daughter at the Lalit, and there was a temple wedding. So it was just nice to write about how she's had such a traditional wedding and a power reception. Around the same time, we wrote about Florence wedding, which was one of the first. It was Sajjan Jindal's younger daughter's wedding in Florence. It was very nice to read about how so many wedding professionals have gone to Florence, and how the Billionaire Club has flown there, and how they've orchestrated a beautiful celebration in Florence. And one thing I must say is that every wedding is special, whether it's big or small. But sometimes it's what you hear, something which is thoughtful, So there are two weddings which I attended, which I remember very well. One wedding I attended in Calcutta. It was at one of the Rajbagris. And at the reception, the father of the bride invited the driver to the stage and saying, while the bride's, me and the bride's mother were away, it was the driver who was taking care of her while she was in Bombay pursuing her career. And it was such a touching thing to see how the driver was honored at an elegant evening reception. There was another wedding in Philippines. It was a Sindhi wedding, which I attended. And the groom's family invited all the wedding vendors on stage at the reception saying, all this has happened. Obviously, they were able to invite them because they were just 100 plus. But in India, typically, the people who are working there are 250 plus, especially for a big wedding, right? For crew sizes, Indian wedding or a destination wedding is huge. But they invited everybody on stage to thank them. So I think anything which is thoughtful, sensitive, we hear a lot about, sustainable weddings are a buzzword today. But I must tell you, Sid, sustainable Indian weddings have all been about inclusivity and sustainability. In smaller towns or villages, the whole family is invited. The whole village is sometimes invited. And weddings are sometimes, food is served, lunch is served by 12 noon. Since we are both, we know we are from the same community, we know sometimes breakfast is served at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And lunch is served by 12 noon. But you know what, the best thing about this, that the extra food can be distributed to the poor by 1 p.m. The moment you're having a wedding where food is served after 11 p.m. and where the service continues till 2 a.m., what do you do with the extra food? You can't send it to any homes, right? Because there's a fear of contamination, and the people nobody eats in the middle of the night. So if you look at the Indian weddings, much before sustainability was a buzzword, it was all about inclusivity, reducing reducing waste, and recycling in some form or the other.
Parthip, tell me honestly, okay, from one brother to the other, do these big fat Indian weddings, celebrity weddings, businessman weddings, they may be known or they may not be known, but they have the power of wealth, have become more of a show business where it's only about showing wealth to the people who come as guests, to the outsiders? Has it become more like that now?
I think the Indian businessman is not a fool. He always gets bang for the buck. He is not spending just for the sake of spending. There is some expenditure which would happen. There is the bride who says, I want a lehenga costing 5 lakhs more than what her sister, that could be thing. But whatever spending happens, it is all, there is a reason. You are inviting it's not, if you look at business family weddings, it's not just the 40 or 50 family members and another 50 friends who are invited. There are 200 to 400 other business acquaintances who are there. You are interacting with them for 2 or 3 days. So does that give you the drift? No more comments from me.
But I'll tell you, some people actually say this, और ये लोग कहते हैं कि वो wedding के बाद उनका stock market का price ऊपर चले जाता है. Literally speaking.
If I can use, I won't talk about stock market, but definitely visibility in circles.
Perception.
And there was a very interesting study done by Tata Institute of Social Sciences some years ago. And I remember interacting with the doctoral research person who was one of the main persons in charge of collecting the study. She said, if there are 500 members of the boys' side and 500 members of the girls' side who are there, both sides get to know what the hosts are doing. So somebody is into finance, somebody is into jewelry, somebody is into construction. Hey, in simple words, and I'm not going to be using a business term here, your social circle is only increased. And your social net worth is also as much as your financial net worth. So there you go. said,
I love the way he gently slid that in.
I've said it as, as politically correct a way as possible to my friend Sid.
Is Jamnagar genuinely now becoming the next wedding capital?
Well, it was a very unique thing because they hosted it in their own complex. I don't think the hotels there will be open for outsiders. So, but what is going to, perhaps what will be interesting to see is just as how they've hosted something in their factory complex, and just as how Subrata Roy did it in the Sahara city over 2 decades ago. Will more such industrialists host, the celebrations in their commercial complexes, or even in their hometowns or villages, though that may not be practically possible because accommodation will always be a challenge for the Gen X and millennials. Gone are the days where families, rich or poor, could go to Tirupati, manage in any kind of accommodation, which was like the hostel accommodation, and there would be a temple wedding. Either it would be in Tirupati or Tirchandur or Guruvayur or Parani. We are talking of towns which have actually had a lot of weddings, right? Because it's destination weddings are really a part of our culture, right? Because they are 2 or 3 day celebrations, or people go back to their villages or temple towns and get married. But today's Gen X and millennials need those 5-star hotel rooms to get ready. They cannot get ready in the dormitory equivalent, accommodation.
Now, is Sabyasachi becoming or already the favorite of every bride?
Well, in Ambani Wedding, you've seen many other designers, right? So you have Radhika Merchant, Isha Ambani, wearing Abu Sandeep, Manish Malhotra, and it's nice to see them wearing some other designers also. So while Bollywood brides have always worn Sabyasachi, it's almost been his outfits, her outfits, jewelry also being Sabyasachi. We have seen some new names, whether it's Tarun Tahiliani and among others, being favored by these celebrity and.
So there's no dominant designer.
Yeah, I think 2024 we hear less of Sabyasachi, not as much as we heard about till 2023.
Spot 2, spot 3, who would that be?
Abu Sandeep and Manish Malhotra. I would put all of them in the same spot right now.
Who's the most popular Bollywood artist for weddings? Who comes on stage? People want him or her. Who's that?
I think there would be many, because again, even a Bollywood artist, it's a very strange relationship, right? A designer did not want to be seen too much as a bridal wear designer until they realized bridal is where the money was. Similarly, it's not every Bollywood artist would like it to be seen that he is going and performing at weddings. And there were some stars who actually had that thing that, hey, you know what, this guy, you pay him money. Like the Bachchans are not going to go to a wedding for money. They are going to go if that family is known to them. Ditto with an Aamir Khan. He would not go and dance at a wedding. Whereas there was a perception that there were some other stars who you pay them the money, they will go and dance in anywhere in the country. So, and I think also when it comes to fashion, of course, the fashion forward bride, you find that regardless of which state they are from, if they have the budgets of, say, over 15 lakhs for their wedding and their other dresses, they would go to these top designers from Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta. I think every state is quite different, right? A family in Hyderabad, they may want some artists from their states, and I don't know much about that, and different actors and actresses will have a different level of popularity in different states.
But who's the most in demand? Singer, or when it comes to dancing on stage, who would that be?
I'm sorry, this is something which is very difficult, because this is something I wouldn't be able to answer. Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming back to actors dancing in weddings, I remember Shahrukh Khan was trolled a lot in those days because he came out in the open and said, And I loved him for saying that in the open. It requires courage. But he said, yes, I dance in weddings. If I'm paid, I dance. And a lot of people trolled him in those days saying, yaar, you're the king of the box office and you're dancing in weddings. But a lot of actors told me that they are paid 4 times their market fees as compared to ads per day rate or landing up at a film shoot per day rate. They said we get 4 times the money performing for weddings.
That may not always be true because that's also a way to say no to some work. So therefore, sometimes you do not want to go, to a particular place where you don't know the family, because it's also a risk, right? If you do not know much about the family background and tomorrow the family is in trouble, it's the whole world is going to talk about is that so-and-so actor performed that.
And landed up there. It happened.
Yeah, it happened. So therefore what happens is sometimes when if they really want to travel to a particular country, if they have, say, not been to the Maldives for a few years and they hear of a very nice cocktail happening there, or there is a particular destination which is their favorite destination in the world, and they want to go there, the family is known to them, I'm sure they're not going to charge them 4 times the rate. They also understand that we've seen, right? I mean, that's a question which everybody's asking. Are these stars being paid by the Ambanis? No, not all of them are being paid unless they're going to be performing on stage, right?
So I'm asking you, great you brought that.
Yeah.
Do you think Shahrukh, Aamir, Salman, 3 of the biggest Khans, coming together after years performing on stage, I don't think they performed on stage together in years.
Yeah.
Were they paid for it, or they came as guests and voluntarily said, because we like the family, because we're close to the family, we'll perform on stage?
I have a feeling that for performing, whoever stars are performing on stage, and I'm not specifically referring to these 3, are paid if they are performing on stage. It is a protocol, or it is it's not something that they will negotiate or anything like that because of their proximity to the family, but definitely not to attend. We all know the dynamics of, there's a huge business out there. One is of dancing and singing, and the other, of course, there are so many television actors and actresses who just attend weddings in tier 2 towns, and where the fees could be anywhere from 5 lakhs to 25 lakhs. Would that be your guess?
Yeah.
Just to attend and just to be seen in the photos. That's a huge business there. So for every one Bollywood star who goes and dances and sings at a wedding, there are 10 others who are just attending a wedding where the family may not spend in crores, but definitely in lakhs to have their
guest
list with some names from television and Bollywood.
So these personalities come, they attend, they don't perform. They just mingle with the guests.
They are there for a little time, and it also that they are very, between them and the manager, there are some very unsaid rules that saying, if she is not comfortable there, she may decide to leave in 10 minutes. So I think there's a lot of talent managers will tell you that there are contracts with the families where they are told that they may not, very often they have to really even show that they are long-time friends it should not, so everything is also, it has to be seen that they are there as friends, because nobody likes to say also that they have paid, because again, this is a very contradictory world. A lot of people would rather say that this star is our family friend.
So I want to ask you this, very interesting, because I've hosted a few, so I see X number of celebrities in the crowd. They just hang out. Yeah. Or sometimes these celebrities stick on with each other. They have this corner, they're sitting, people come click pictures with them, they smile, and they leave after an hour.
Sure.
Deal must be for an hour.
Yeah.
And there are some, like you said, jinka kaam hai ki I have to show I'm close to the family. So are they properly briefed ki dekho ye chacha hai, ye fufa ji hai, these are their names. You have to come on stage, click a picture, and you have to just mingle with the family, chat as if you've known them for years. They're properly briefed, these celebrities, and they spend time on that?
I think always these celebrities would prefer to give the minimum commitment, and such that it is at their discretion how long they want to be, because ultimately they are stars, they have their own moods, and it's all depending on how they feel or how much they want to be there. and not, I don't think many of them will commit, because ultimately, I don't think their memory with names.
Because he's a bit too chotu.
They're not professionals like you. Say that they will remember who is who, and you can't have prompters there. So I don't think they will commit to that unless they rehearse. There are meetings. But again, I think all stars would like to keep that little, like I often sometimes wonder that even with performers, I've seen some celebrity performers, sometimes I see them at the breakfast table, right? Because if they say, you know what, I'm tired of being in my room, but most of them will say, hey, you know what, I don't want to be seen before or after the function, because that whole mystical value lies in being there only for a short while. So which means they enter, they quickly go to their suite, and everything is room service only, and they are not going to ever come for the buffet, especially if it's a destination wedding where they're being hosted for 2 nights. So there has to be a little aura around them, and the only other time guests can see them is if they are lucky to see them at the lobby.
जी हाँ दोस्तों, मेरा खुद का मर्चेंडाइज, अंगार मर्चेंडाइज, जंपर्स, टी शर्ट्स, हुडीज, मग्स, ये सब आपको मिलेंगे इस लिंक पर, which is angar.store. यहां पर क्लिक करिए. लिंक ऑफ दिस इज ऑल्सो इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन, जो आपको मिलेगा इस वीडियो के नीचे. Are Bollywood actors now open about performing in weddings and proud to say, yes, if I'm paid, I get on stage and dance at weddings? Are they okay with it now? Is it cool to say such things now?
They may not say it, but it is also that I think it also depends a lot on the family who is inviting them, and that depends what phase, what is the kind of stage which the actor is at, because he may only want to be seen in some functions. And I'm sure when it comes to certain families whom they know personally, they are not charging also to go and even perform. Because relationships we all know how important relationships is, and the smartest stars are those who are not only good performers, but they're also very sharp when it comes to business, and they know business is also about managing relationships.
Wow, well said. In fact, is there pressure amongst the families to up the wedding game? For example, I read on social media someone saying Radhika and Anand's wedding was done on such a big scale. Isha and Akash's wedding was not that high on priority in terms of the scale. It was more subdued than Radhika and Anand.
Yeah.
So, does that happen between families where they feel the pressure?
Well, you've used the word up the wedding game. I just had that line edited from another social media. I was saying, listen, wedding is not a game. Yes, up the game is a very common thing, but it's a very real line. But yes, there is a pressure, and even families who say they are not succumbing to the pressure do have that pressure. It's not that much, I would say, middle class and upper middle class families, or in some communities where simplicity is, where celebrations are more at a simple level. But yes, there is that whole thing about not wanting people to know how much you really spent, or something which literally looks more expensive than what it really is, which is why wedding packages will never do in India, because you don't want the guest to know what was the cost per guest.
We also saw how celebrities were serving food to the guests in the Ambani wedding. There was speculation कि क्या इनको पैसे मिले हैं serve करने के लिए खाना. Do you think that was दिल से, or do you think that was?
I think it was दिल से. I don't think, with the relationships they have with the celebrities, I don't think it will be in a very contractual or a very structured thing. It's all very relationship driven, and of course, I'm sure there is the requisite fee to be paid for performances, because the family is also known to be very professional when it comes to services rendered, because that is what has made them build an empire, right?
Imagine Justin Bieber Rihanna, all of
And
them.
those figures which are being floated around, one never knows how far they are true. It's just, there's no source for it.
Yeah, because suddenly you see on social media 75 crores paid. Then you see Rihanna being on stage and mispronouncing the bridegroom's name. And they say, "Arey, yaar, 75 crore mila." So all these figures are aise phek diya gaya.
It's all, it just starts with somebody putting it out there. It becomes clickbait. And the family is above all this. They don't need to care about what, you know, they're doing the celebrations their way. It is their closest friends, business acquaintances are there. They're having a good time, and they're not saying that we paid this fee, right? So one never knows what the real figure was.
So you're dead sure that these figures are just bas baith ke
much like the wedding industry size figures.
Do you sometimes miss the simplicity in weddings?
In fact, I enjoy simple weddings much more than grand weddings. Yeah. And sometimes somebody says, you know, Parthip, please come for my wedding. I'm going to have a very simple wedding. I say, hey, you know what? That's what I enjoy most. But, you know, life has also changed. And while the big weddings will be much in the news, for every one big wedding, there are hundreds small and simple weddings. They don't get featured on social media. I know some very well-placed people who are doing very well in their corporate careers. They actually chose to have a very simple wedding.
What do you think about Sonakshi and Zaheer Iqbal's wedding?
Hats off to them. They chose to have a simple at-home signing ceremony, and they chose an independent venue. It was not a typical 5-star venue, and they did it their way. It was there was no hassle of taking 200 guests or 300 guests traveling with them, because today also there are a lot of people like a Sonakshi. She may not have been. She may just have dreamt of a very simple wedding. But if she had actually dreamt of, you know, having a church wedding in some beautiful church in Europe, with her money, it could have happened. Maybe she didn't dream of that. She just dreamt of something where she could have a good time with her closest friends. And that's what happened at Bastion in Bombay.
Does inter-religion marriages like these put a lot of pressure on the couple too, because of the kind of hype or conversations that happen on social media? And does the bride, in this case Sonakshi or Zaheer, feel the pressure?
I think that's why they put off comments for one of their posts, right? Because there could have been a lot of trolling, and a lot of, you know, all eyes were on the father of the bride, or a lot of analysis on why the brother was not there. So there was a lot of, you know, and anything which is not very conventional. You know, there are a lot of things which today what has happened, that there's all kinds of people on social media and they are not able to understand certain dynamics. Let's face it, the life which the Bollywood people lead in their well-heeled homes is very different from the real life of all the millions of those who follow them. And they're sometimes not able to understand it. You know, inter-religion marriage would be no in their community or family, but it's very different in some strata. And whether it is about age difference, income difference, like a lot of people could not just understand how Ira Khan married a personal trainer. But they may also not know that personal trainers today make a lot of money also, right? It's not that... So there are certain professions which they don't understand, right? And earlier, of course, you had some daughters of top Bollywood families who were not actresses who chose to marry industrialist families, right? Like Raj Kapoor's daughter got married into the Escorts family of Delhi. Ranbir Kapoor's sister got married into a prominent business family. So those are typically everybody. I think everybody who's a Bollywood watcher, if she has the looks, the glamour, maybe he has the money and therefore they are able to understand it. But if he is not as moneyed as her and not from the same community or religion as her, they wonder how the two can meet, synergies happen. And I think the human mind looks for that synergy, and they look for they just find it very odd when they don't see the two going together. But in there are Bollywood couples where they're two equally famous. There's a Kiara Sid, it's understood, or a Ranbir, Alia. Both are from well-known families. Both are doing well in their career. It's all happy. Everybody is happy. Or she is marrying somebody who runs a startup, the valuation of which is 500 or 1,000 crore plus. It's all, they see the two meet. But the moment she marries, though of course you hear less of these stories today, there was a time when you heard about the rich boy marrying the poor girl, or the rich girl marrying the poor, which you would see in films earlier. And they were kind of little more common, if not poor, middle class and rich. You find less of those, not only in Bollywood, but even in real life.
You don't need to take names, okay? And I respect you for that. Have you been at a celebrity wedding where you saw that the dynamics are not good? They're putting a big fat Indian wedding together. You're there, you can feel the uncomfortable zone in the air because the power was maybe in the bride's hand and not in the bridegroom's hand, or vice versa. You felt the tension, and you also felt this is not going to survive for long, and then it survived or didn't survive. Have you been there in a situation like this?
This is a question I would ask wedding planners, because they interact with the bride and groom much more than I would. As just whatever happens in a reception, there's makeup and there's a lot of things, but life is full of surprises. I've heard of, or I know of, couples who really fought during their engagement phase and who are happily married 10 or 15 years later. And I know those who got along fabulously well and they really respected each other's sentiments, and the marriage broke up a couple of years later. I've also heard of a case where the boy side paid for everything, and they had the upper hand on everything, and they were very respectful to the girl side. And one would think what would happen later. The boy and girl are happily married. One would think that the girl would have her own adjustments to make. So life is full of surprises, and it's also about how the boy and the girl manage it, and it's got nothing to do with the families. So I think generally I've seen families cannot do much to bring together a couple or even to break a couple, right? It's all in the bride and groom's hand. Because sometimes they say, oh, families intervene and they're together, but then they're together only for a little while. And the same is when it comes to these dynamics of the weddings. No matter what each side does, less or more, it's finally the boy and the girl who make it work, or for whatever reason decide to call it quits.
What percentage of one's income does one spend on their weddings?
Very good question. So one would look at it from an annual income perspective. I'm not talking of savings. So if you look at a middle class family in India, I'm not sure what gets classified as a middle class or not. But if the family annual income is, say, in the case of a middle class family, if the family annual income is, say, I'm just talking on one side, hypothetically 25 lakhs a year, it would not be surprising if 1 year's income is spent overall on the wedding, which is 25 lakhs. So for a family where, and this includes purchases and other stuff. And when you look at, so that's the way the middle class, the way, 1 year's income is the spend for the wedding. And if you look at the high net worth individuals, I would say it would be around, if you look at the total net worth of the family being around 100 crores. It would be anywhere from 1 to 5%, depending on the interest of the bride or groom or the community they belong to. So there are certain communities which tend to spend more, which are Punjabis, Marwadis, Gujaratis and Sindhis. So 1 to 5% of the net worth would be for a high net worth individual.
How much would have the Ambani wedding been?
No,
Approximately. You could be wrong. You're human. I'm not saying that you've been there with the accounts person and sat with him and figured out, or with the wedding planner.
No
But roughly.
idea, no idea. Really have no idea. Yeah.
Sid, Kiara? Roughly?
I think Bollywood celebs, after all the barters and other stuff, they would spend anywhere between 1 to 2 CR for the wedding.
Yeah.
Around 1 to 2 CR is what Bollywood, top Bollywood stars would spend for the wedding, and the others would spend anywhere, if they were spending on their own and families were not doing it, television actors would spend anywhere from as less as 25 lakhs to 1 CR.
Does it happen that these actors whose weddings are happening, in their parties, do they tell the DJ Zabardasti mere gaane bajao?
I wouldn't be very aware of that.
Very curious. Do you think it happens? I know one school where they say, "Yaar, mere gaane mat bajao," because they get embarrassed being on the floor because their songs are playing continuously. And there are some celebrities who might be telling the DJ ki mere gaane bajao.
Not
What
sure.
are you?
I'm not sure. Well, because I usually, when I attend weddings also, I don't stay on till the wee hours of morning. I'm back. I leave
Like
early.
a good boy goes back home. If there's one thing that you're very proud about our Indian wedding planners, the Indian wedding industry, what is that?
I would say it is really about their resilience and their adaptability. Indian weddings, there is no contracts, there's a lot of ambiguity, and the way they are able to work, they could be hired, they are able to pull off everything. So it is about the resilience and the ambiguity and the long hours they put in, because unlike abroad, I would think, where a wedding planner is charging them for a certain number of hours, there's a consultation. I know wedding planners who are probably at the client's place in the middle of the night. And today we hear a lot of things where everybody is working on a plan B, for example. It's a beautiful outdoor setup. There are sudden rains. So it's all about doing the job and making sure the boy and the girl have a good time. And most wedding planners are really, truly committed to that. And I do know that a lot of them have to compromise on their health, family times, and much more. Because again, India is not one of those, especially at the high income level, the pressure is really between the November and the March months. So in those 5 months, they have to earn what they would otherwise in other professions they would do by allocating their work over 12 months. So there's a lot of pressure on their health and family time, which is why I think you have to have a very, very supportive spouse, sibling, or a parent if you are in this industry. It's quite similar to Bollywood too.
Talking about Bollywood once again, Tapsi didn't share her wedding pictures.
Yes.
What was the thought process behind that? Did she want to give
Maybe she just said, hey, you know what, everybody was said, what are you going to wear different? And this is, maybe she said, I'm going to be different by just not sharing pictures. I'll probably be the first Bollywood bride who in the last 5 years has not even put up a single picture on her own social media. I think I don't know of a single actress who's not shared her wedding pictures on her own social media. And she just decided that was the most different thing, and hats off to her for doing that.
Do you think a lot of weddings, celebrity weddings, follow the same pattern? For example, pastel shades, destinations,
Sabyasachi,
sun-kissed pics. Do you think they're all following a pattern? And especially sometimes you even see their pictures. Their poses are very similar. They're laughing at each other, with each other. And you suddenly notice, ye picture celebrity ka same hai as that wedding.
Well, it happens, and that's also because of the fact that maybe they just say, I don't want to try too hard also, right? The moment you say, I want to be different, I want my reel to be viral, I want this to be different, they say, hey, you know what, but that's how it was even earlier, right? You look at 2 wedding albums which are black and white, they were all similar. You're not trying too hard.
Pre-wedding shoots. Have you seen any crazy pre-wedding shoots happen?
Oh, lots.
Tell me something.
We keep hearing about unusual pre-wedding shoots, and Though I think today what is happening is that couples may not have time for it to travel 6 months before, and or maybe they just do a nice shoot the day before the wedding. Uh, but again, I must say, Sid, not not every parent is even comfortable with the bride traveling outstation with the groom, and it's usually the brother who's accompanying. So,
I wonder why.
Yes. So, which is why you find a lot of shoots happening in Lonavala and Khandala.
But are they made to look as if they're in a foreign location? ऐसे होता है when they're in
Well,
Lonavala?
and also other interesting thing is, I know so many who've had an arranged marriage, but a proposal in Maldives is de rigueur. So this is interesting, right? There was a time when we were featuring the love stories of some couples, and suddenly they told us, "Can you please take it down or remove that one line?" And they said, "Oh, our family is very upset that we have talked about our love story because our father informed all our relatives that it was an arranged marriage." So these are all some interesting stories which we get to hear from real couples.
Yeah. Well, I've been to a situation where a very well-known businessman had a huge wedding in Udaipur. And me and another celebrity anchor, we were doing the cricket match commentary and stuff like that. And it was so huge. Cut to 10 months later, he was getting married again. But the wedding was so basic and simple, you know. So sometimes it also happens when the wedding doesn't work, it also hurts you कि मैंने इतना खर्च किया यार. होता है, ये भी होता होगा ना?
True.
But coming back, I'm going to give you some names. Whether you're the insider there doesn't matter, but you genuinely tell me what you thought of their wedding, all right? Priyanka and Nick.
Royal.
Alia Ranbir.
At home.
Parineeti Raghav.
City of Lakes.
Kiara Sidharth.
Destination Jaisalmer.
Zaheer Sonakshi.
Cool party.
Ambani Wedding.
Magnificent, mega, and much more.
Does that wedding put a pressure on a lot of the other billionaires?
I'm sure it does. They won't say it, but they may say, "Hey, what's happening there?" But there is the pressure.
What's your take on these OTT projects, made in India and Indian matchmaking? Have you seen it?
Yes, I have. They're doing well in their own way, but whatever said and done, no Bollywood film or no OTT platform can now do a wedding even remotely on the same scale as an Ambani wedding. We've seen the biggest of them all, thanks to behind the scenes and later on from the photos.
When we see these posts on Weddingsutra of these big fat Indian celebrity weddings, the pictures that come to you are sent through the PR, right?
No, they are sent to the wedding planner or the photographer.
And they send it to you.
That's right.
But it's obviously approved by the celebrities.
Absolutely, by the families and the celebrities. Yeah.
So what pictures are going out? Sidharth, Kiara, for example, they've approved the pictures. They've said these are
Not really, not Bollywood, because the pictures are already out, or they are coming. Sometimes they come to the PR. When it comes to families, which is real brides, they are very particular about what is, But it's the same case with even the Bollywood brides also, right? They would be giving the approval to their PR.
Well, thank you so much, Parthip. It's been fascinating talking to you.